stuff, they've got numbers and all this on them because they are kind of new and all. But we're gonna tell you what you can get and where to get it. So, or he's got a list of them too. Growing fruits in South Carolina is fun, but it's got its challenges, a lot of challenges. I tell you what, let me get one of my outlines. Where are the outlines? Have they been passed out?
We might have dropped.
I need my outline.
We might have dropped the ball.
I'd peek your head out and ask Ashley if she's got them.
Well, anyway, there's a thing called chilling hours that is extremely important when you come to fruit. And a chilling hour is how many hours we have below 45 or 43, somewhere in there, in a year. Around here, we've probably got 600 to 800 chilling hours, which means starting in November or October, how long it stays below 45, and the trees know this. And we
Is that what you're looking for?
that's what we're looking for. Yes. And you don't realize how important this is until you try to grow a Bartlett pear in our area. Now, Bartlett pears normally take 16 to 1800 chilling hours. It's way up there. And we get about 600 to 800, so you're missing 1,000 hours or so there. And if you ever get one to bear, it probably won't be worth a nickel. You know, the Bartlett's a little soft pear you get in the grocery store. And most of our fruits have what we call chilling hours attached to them. So we need to know, when you order from Stark Brothers and you order these beautiful things, you think, and then you get them and they just don't do here. It's not the tree itself. The trees a lot of times will grow good, but the chilling hour set the flower. If it doesn't bloom, you're not going to have fruit. But the chilling hour sets the flower in the bud, so that then you can have fruit. Then of course there's pollination too. But the chilling hours, if you don't have the right amount of chilling hours, it's not going to work. How many of y'all have tried to grow lilacs and peonies around here and had much success? They in the same category, they have to have chilling hours. We found with lilacs, there's one or two that we'll do here. Miss Kim lilac, and I don't know if Brian's going to have that or not, but we'll get him to. And there's another one or two that now have come on the market that are low chilling hours. And then peonies are the same way. But I've got two ladies that used to work for me in Nursery Carolina, and they would take their peonies and put them in pots. And in a pot, they will get a lot more chilling hours than it will planted in the ground because the ground is warmer. And so they got some of that peonies to work like that. But don't just try to think, well, I can make it work. Because sometimes it won't. I don't care what, like the Bartlett pear, it will not work. Bunch grapes now are not the best thing. Or do you grow bunch grapes? Right, okay. Bunch grapes don't do well here. Now they have enough chilling hours, but they don't. The humidity is so high, it is really hard to spray them and keep them going because they'll get so many different diseases. And so bunch grapes, they used to be in Montmorency, South Carolina, which is not far from here at all, 10 miles. There used to be a vineyard there, and they did pretty good with it, but it was a lot of spraying to keep the diseases and all because of humidity. So you can't just make anything grow where you want to. Like my mother-in-law, she always wanted a palm tree up in Durham, North Carolina. and very few palms will live. Well, she said, well, if you leave it long enough, you cover it up enough years, finally it'll get acclimated no, it won't get acclimated. It's gonna freeze and kill it, you know. You can't make something. I had a guy over in North Augusta. He went to Homestead, Florida, bought a tractor trailer load of palm trees. Didn't know anything about palm trees, huge trees, you know, these 10, 15 foot trunks, and planted them in this housing development, called it Palmetto something, which they weren't palmettos, because palmettos don't live here, and called it Palmetto Dunes or something like that. And he called me and he said, my palms are dying. And I said, what kind are these? I don't know. And I went over there, all of them tropical palms. Wouldn't work here. You can't make something grow where you think it should. Peaches are real odd. There are a humongous variety that will do in our area, and even up in Michigan and all. They have plenty of good peaches up there, but they're a different variety than here. So you can't get a peach tree up in Michigan and try to bring it here, because it probably won't get enough chilling hours. But see, around here, we were going up through Johnson and Trenton, and that's a fun little trip. I don't know if you've ever been to the Juniper restaurant in Ridge Spring, but taking the back roads kinda, you see peach trees like you just will never believe. Fields and fields. And we saw some trying to bloom.
Nice little reddish, purplish.
That's right.
to them.
That's right. They already started to get that purple peach way to them. And but I saw some varieties trying to bloom. Well, if they are too low a chilling hours, in other words, you get like 400 or 500 chilling hours on the peach, and then it warms up too quick, then they'll bloom, and then the cold's gonna get them. So you gotta know what you're getting and what area it grows in. You can't just get anything you plant it and say, well, grandmama had it, I want it in my yard, you know. But peaches, I wouldn't sell peaches for about 10 years, because I don't know if I ever had I'm gonna talk to customers out of peach trees. I don't know if I ever had a customer that could spray it enough. It is the most highly sprayed fruit in the fruit tree industry. And I went by yesterday on the way out of Johnson, going up toward Ridge Spring. There was a customer that we planted a big yard for 50 years ago, and she had remarried another peach person when her husband died, and he grows more peaches in Johnston or Edgefield County than the whole state of Georgia grows. One plantation, and he grows more peaches than the whole state of Georgia. And he is a real big fruit tree. In other words, he owns citrus orchards down in Florida and everything. And I asked him when he came to Turkey, I said, isn't the peach the most highly sprayed fruit in the fruit industry? And he said, yeah, but citrus are kind of running its second place.
My battery might have died. Let me check it for you real quick.
But he said, where did it
We just have to talk loud for a minute.
I can do
Pause
this.
for intermission.
Let me take it with me. Good. All right. Always something. Sorry,
But
guys.
he said citrus trees are a lot of spraying too. And citrus around here is real questionable. There are a few things that'll do pretty good, but like this winter wasn't so bad, but last winter we had a grapefruit tree that has been, we got the cuttings or seed from it, from a 30-year-old tree down in around the airport, Bush Field, and it was doing great, and last year really hurt it. Now it's coming back, but it really hurt it because this is, you know, we got down like 10, 11 degrees, and they don't like that. A friend of mine, when I was in his wedding back in the, maybe I can, there you go.
You good to go now?
A friend of mine was, wanted me to be at his wedding, and he was down in the Delta of New Orleans, Slidell, Louisiana, that's where he was. And he had a citrus orchard, and they grew citrus trees to sell. And they had it piped with diesel, whereas he said when it got to 20 degrees, we turned the flambeaus on, and that was for diesel, was 15, 20 cents a gallon, see. And but he would heat his orchard, you know, as long as it wasn't freezing. And but you just can't. But he said he wouldn't turn on. He said they stayed out all night swinging thermometers trying to get the temperature. And when it reached 20 degrees, they turned it on to save the fruit. So and to save the blossoms. But citrus is another whole ballpark. They are getting more and more cold hardy ones that can come up here. Some of the satsumas. And do you grow any citrus?
Arctic frost, changsat.
Okay.
Cross between the changsat, tangerine, and the satsuma.
Okay. So some of the satsumas and those are trying to do up here, but you sometimes have to protect them. Right. But it's kind of a, you know, there are a bunch of things easier to grow than citrus. But I mean, it's fun to try. I was in the yard one day, and a lady had me over looking at her, you know, to help her with the landscape. And she had a lemon tree that was probably 10 by 10. And it was full of lemons. And this was in the middle of the winter. And I said, how did you do that? She said, oh, I had a greenhouse over it. And I tore the greenhouse down. So that's why I got so big. Okay. Apple varieties. Now, you've got to be very careful in your selection, again, for the cold. And apples get a lot of different problems too. But when I was a kid, we never sprayed them or anything, and we just got what the good Lord left us, you know. And there was a worm in every apple, but we didn't worry about that. We just ate around it. And they were the best. My dad said they were golden delicious, but we never let them turn gold. We ate them while they were green, and they were wonderful apples. We had fried apples for breakfast. We had apple pies. We made more apple jelly than you can shake a stick at. And we made more peach too, because my cousins were up there in Trenton, and they had peach orchards. And see, when they pick them almost green, and they run them through this thing called a hydro cooler. When they pick them, they run them through that. Within 30 minutes, they lose, well, it's probably an hour, they lose 50% of their sugar content. But see, if they can run them through that real cold water, they can't freeze them because that'll burn them. But they run them through that water that's like 35 degrees, and that locks the sugar in so that they'll ship and not go bad. One of the best peaches out there is called Bella Georgia, but and you'll never see it on the market. Two reasons. One is white flesh, and people think white is not a good peach, and they don't like it. When you put it under colored lights, though, it's the favorite. But the problem with it is it's not a shipper. It bruises too bad, so it won't ship. So it's called Bella Georgia, and that's a real good peach. I'm sure there are others better that Brent can tell you about. But pears. Now pears are one of the best bearing fruits in our area. And if you never spray it, you'll still get good pears usually. Now, you gotta have the variety there too, like I said, the Bella Georgia, not the Bella Georgia, the Bartlett does not do here. So don't go to Home Depot or Lowe's and buy Bartlett. This is not gonna do. And they will sell it to you though. But pears, if we've got the hard ones. The kefir, it's got the grit in it, but it makes good relish and stuff like that. But we just don't have a good soft eating one. Now, Brenda's told me about a Southern Bartlett, and I'm excited about that one because it's a very good eater. It's tasty and it's softer, and it's a good pear. But we've got to Ryan's got to try to find it because that one's not readily available. Pears get a problem called fire blight. And what you'll see is a tree will be doing great, but about June or July, you'll see a dead limb about this black, just turns black in the tree. And that comes in through the flower. And it's a bee brings it from another one that's infected, and then it'll kill that much. So you've got to cut out all the black, and then you have to cut out about 18 inches below that. So you're really cutting a lot out of the tree. And if you see you having a bad problem with that tree, you just need to take it out because it's going to affect others. And it's the only way you can control it. Like Brent may have some ways, but the only way you can control it, everybody knows what streptomycin is, antibiotic, or antibacterial, I'm not sure which. Antivirus, I think it's antibiotic. And you have to flood the bloom so that it won't affect the bloom, and it's almost impossible to do. We sold it for years. I don't think anybody ever had success with it. And because you never knew whether the stuff you were buying was viable to start with. So you wasted your time. So when you see a tree getting fire blight, and the problem we're having is all the Bradford pear seedlings are coming up all over, everywhere. And they get fire blight and they infect our good pears. But not a lot of times a pear tree will bear really good and without even being sprayed, and just pick them up, and normally they bear so good to break the limbs off the trees. One thing I want to warn you about is most fruit trees are grafted. Okay, they have a graft knot. Normally you see it about 4 to 6 inches off the ground, and a lot of people will say, well, my pear tree has 2 different trees on it, and one of them has little berries for pears, the other one has regular pears. Well, what's happened is the graft is sprouted and it's been let go, and then it'll actually overtake the good pear. So you've got to watch for that to make sure you keep anything below the graft picked off or pruned off. If you don't, you've got a mess. I have these people say, well, I've got the weirdest thing. I got a white dogwood and a pink dogwood all on the same tree. And it's what's happened. See, a pink dogwood has been grafted onto a white rootstock, and then the white sprouted and they never cut it off. And so they'll have both. If you leave it like that, the white will definitely outgrow the pink, and you'll have a problem there if you want a piece of tree. There are a lot of things like that, so you need to watch that graft stock. And I always warn people to don't plant so deep. People try to put the knot below the ground. That is not a good idea. I like to leave the knot up and leave it right where the root collar spreads out, and leave it right there. I'm real want to exaggerate how planting shallow is by far the best thing. When you plant deep, Schufert's got a little saying. He says if you plant it too low, it won't grow. You plant it too high, it won't die. And I'm gonna tell you, you can't plant anything too high. You put a can on top of the ground and keep it watered, it roots in the ground, and it does just fine, you know, for years. But if you plant it a couple of inches too low, you can kill it or stun it. People come in the nursery all the time and say, I got a crepe myrtle I bought 5 years ago and it was this high and it's still that high. I said, you planted it too low. And they said, how do you know? I said, well, dig around and you'll see where that root is way down, the black dirt is way down in there. And it, people say, well, it'll re-root, but a lot of times it won't re-root. I dug up some 15-gallon crepe myrtles one time, or 30-gallon ones, and they were planted 6 inches too deep. And they wondered why they wouldn't grow. Well, when we dug them up, the roots were coming out of the ball like this, and then they did like this. They went straight up, and then they went out like this, trying to get that air. Tree roots, you know, we always think they need deep and water. Well, that's the worst thing you can do is plant it deep. But 95% of the tree roots are within 6 inches, 4 to 6 inches of the top of the ground. So you think you always got to have these tap roots and all. No, the main roots are the surface roots. And when you cover those roots up too much, you smother it. And you can kill an whole tree just by putting some 4 to 6 inches of dirt all over it. A lady called me one day from Waynesburg. She said, I got 4 tractor trailer loads of dirt coming in here. I'm going to spread it all over my roots because they're coming out of the ground. I said, and you just going to kill every one of your trees. And she said, what? And I explained that you cut that air supply off and you'll kill them. Even a big old tree. I've seen people kill them by putting dirt over the roots, so don't do that. You've got to be careful. You've got to think like a tree. Realize that these roots are breathing air as well as water. And so when you cover them up, you're doing a ton of damage. Plums, they need a lot of spraying too. I hate to say it. Now see, peaches and plums and nectarines, all apricots, things like that, they are a pitted fruit. They're pitted fruit. And they get a lot of diseases, but they get borers in the trunk real bad too. And borers are not easy to control. Can we still use bifenthrin legally on? Right.
I don't know if we can legally.
Huh?
I don't know if we can legally or not.
Right, okay. There's a product out there called bifenthrin that you cannot use on stuff. Take it with a grain of salt. But it is a natural, I mean not a natural, it's a synthetic natural. Pyrethrum in that family. But you need, it's funny because there's a lot of different borers. My rule of the thumb was when peaches bloom is when you need to be spraying the trunk for borers, and I don't know what that's borer that is. And then when August 15th, I think it is the other spraying for other borers. It's to spray a fruit tree and a plum tree correctly is next to impossible. So when you buy a peach, I'll go up in the peach country, you got to really respect these men because they do a lot of work. They have black boxes out in the orchards that tell them what the humidity and the darkness and the temperature and all that is, so they know when to spray. But they are most highly sprayed fruit, and not just for the fruit. All right, the spray, you know, when you got a peach or a plum and you see a worm in it, he was put in the flower. In other words, you see a hole coming out, oh, he's coming out, then he's already been in there. But he's put in the flower. And here's the challenge, is you don't want to run your bees off. You have to have your bees for pollination. You don't want to kill your bees. But when the flower is swelling, is one of the sprays. When the flower is open and the bees are working, you cannot spray. And when the petals fall, is another spray. And then you're supposed to spray like every 14 days or so after that. So it's just real critical. And you don't just haphazardly do that. And Brian, I'm sure, sells fruit tree spray. And it's got 3 different products in it normally. And some of it is not good for bees at all. It's got cavaril in it a lot of times. That's not good for bees. But as long as you do it in the right sequences and just don't spray it when the flower's open. And you watch your bees. Your bees will tell you when you see the bees quit working, and then you can spray it again. And you spray it before it opens because the bees not going to work it. But don't spray it while it's open. And that's plums and peaches and anything in that group. And nectarines like in the pitted fruit family. Pecans, pecans. My dad said when you at a roadside stand selling them, somebody wanted pecans, they were 30-something pounds. If they wanted pecans, they were 60 cents a pound. If they wanted pecans, they were $2 a pound. No, my dad didn't sell them like that because he was too honest, but he said that's the way you. All right. He always told me we planted a tree for all our kids. It was 5 trees in our yard, one for every kid. And there's 3 of them are still there. The highway expanded and got some of them. But he always said, well, they have a 7-year cycle. You know, they have a 7-year cycle. Well, it's not that. Pecans are another thing that take a lot of spraying, which is impossible for a homeowner. Do you do any pecans?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. But pollination, it's so much complication to it. You see my book here? This is my collection of different fruit pamphlets and things over the years. And they're just invaluable. I can't, but I've got a little picture here. And it's coming all to pieces, but it's 9 different problems that a pecan tree can have, and that's just the tip of the iceberg because there's so many other problems. But pollination is a huge problem with pecan trees. There's type 1 tree and type 2 trees. One of them, the female flower blooms, and then when it's gone, the male flower blooms. And the other one, the female flower blooms, and then it's gone and the male flower blooms. So it's rare you get a pecan tree that is self-pollinating. Do you have one that is?
No.
Okay. So you've got to know which type you buy, type 1 or type 2, and then you put those together. I think like a Stewart and Desirable will work together. And I've got a chart you can go online and find. Now, those 2 trees are the old standard standbys with much better nuts out there now. But go on the Clemson website or on the University of Georgia website, and they will tell you different varieties of type 1s and type 2s. But you got to have them both. Now you think about this. They're wind pollinated. You know, we see the pollen in the, we think that's what causing all our allergies. I don't believe that, but anyway, because that's just good Lord's way of pollination. But if you got 2 pecan trees, you got to hope the wind blows that way one time and this way again while they're pollinating, So that's why orchards work better and in a square, because they get good pollination all around with the winds. But you can understand when you got two trees and if the wind has to blow that way, then it has to blow this way, you might not get that. Well, that's one of the problems. It can rain during pollination and knock all the pollen out. And then they have all kind of shuckworms and aphids and scab and all this stuff, you know. To get a pecan, you really gotta appreciate it because it is like, it's almost like a peach that you got to do so much. Fortunately, it doesn't get many borers. There is a twig girdle though that gets them. Has it, twig girdle, you know what a twig girdle is? Have they ever got your,
I haven't had a problem with that.
has it ever got on your persimmons? They'll cover persimmon too. I didn't know that. We had some persimmon trees. There's this little thing called a twig girdle. Yeah, that's right there. But you'll find a pecan or a hickory limb laying on the ground, and it's got a perfect. It's just you knew somebody did it mechanically with a pruning, with a pruning shear. Well, it's a twig girdle that goes around. I got a picture of it right there. But he goes around just cuts this perfect little thing. And then he leaves it up in the tree and he walks out on it and plants his eggs in the limb. All right. When the tree sheds its leaves, that one's up there and it's still got old dead leaves on it because it killed the limb. Well, the working of the wind through the winter breaks it off and it falls to the ground and the egg hatches and he crawls out and goes in the ground. And then he prunes the tree for you and he really doesn't do a lot of damage. But if like we had those persimmon trees like this, he cut them off, so that was bad. But it's just a really interesting phenomenon. But he'll prune the tree for you and then he climbs back up there and puts his eggs in there for next year too. But so picking up the limbs and laying around, they have that real neat cut in them, and burning them is the best thing to do for that. If you see a problem with that, normally that's not a problem, it's kind of a phenomenon. But they get powdery mildew, they get aphids real bad. So to get a pecan, it's by luck. And that's why Daddy said it's a 7-year cycle. Then they have to have zinc in their fertilizer. Now believe it or not, this stuff has zinc in it. Might not have quite enough, but probably enough for our area if you keep doing it all the time. You can get a special pecan fertilizer, that's what it has, it's just got zinc in it. But it's not a quick release. I mean, it is a quick release, but if you use this with lime, that'll make it work a lot better, and that'll probably all you need for your fruit trees is right there in that too. So this is an excellent fertilizer. It lasts 12 months and has all your minor elements like zinc and iron, molybdenum, copper, boron, manganese, and sulfur, and all kind of other good stuff. So by using this, you keep your tree well balanced, and it's only once a year, which is great. And you don't have to do anything, throw it on top of the ground. Yes, sir.
When do you fertilize your pecan trees?
Right now. February and March is a real good time to do it. So go ahead and just throw it. There's not much grass under them, so if you throw it out now, if you follow the rule book, they want you to dig holes all around it. Like stick a shovel in the ground and open it up, pour it in there so the grass doesn't get the fertilizer before the tree does. You want to get it below the grass line, and that's probably a good idea. But if you don't have a lot of grass under it, you can just throw it on top of the ground. That's the easiest way. And lime it too. Liming is so important. Liming makes your fertilizer work so much better. It's not fertilizer, but it's your major source of calcium and magnesium, and calcium is what helps your tips of your limbs develop flowers. So it is very important to use lime, and mine's keeping a good supply of it. Figs. probably one of the easiest fruits to grow, but again, it's a little bit of potluck because it can get killed in the winter. Ted and I always said plant a fig where it does not get morning sun in the winter. All right, I'm going to explain that. Plant it where it does not get morning sun in the winter. Okay, you got a morning like this morning, and that fig is in full sun, and in the morning, if it's like 20 degrees and that sun hits it first thing, it'll burst bark on it because it thaws it too quickly. So we try to put it where it gets afternoon sun next to a structure, or even northern exposure where it does not get the sun until summertime. But when you plant it where it gets southern exposure, eastern exposure, you're just opening up for problems when it freezes. So try not to put it there. It always seems to work best next to a structure too. Planting a fig just way out in the middle of the open, a lot of times it's going to get cold damage. There are some colder varieties you can probably get, but that's what we've always found. What figs do you grow?
Celeste and brown turkey.
Yep, great. The two old standards around here are Celeste and brown turkey. Brown turkey is a fairly good sized fig. It's a very good fig. And then Celeste is a little smaller. We used to call Celeste a little sugar fig. It's a little bit smaller. But those just do great around here. We've got a lot of, there's a Louisiana purple. Have you ever tried that? Louisiana purple is supposed to be real good too. There's a lot of them out there now. We had one called Chicago, which I can't imagine what to do in Chicago, but that's what it's called. But I don't know how it performed. I know the brown turkey and Celeste are just good standards that work really good. Now pruning a fig is, people always say, how do you prune it? Let it get big, then you cut it back, let it get bigger again, and cut it back. It fruits on what we call new wood. So when you cut it and it starts sprouting, it'll be figs on there. But don't cut it like after the new growth has started. Try to cut it in February, January, February, somewhere in there. Most fruit trees need to be pruned in January, February. But figs do great most years. But sometimes you'll run into the cold damage problem. Yes.
So, like on my fig trees at home right now, they're already putting out a little bit of growth. Is it too late, even though we're still in February, to prune them?
You're going to slow it down. In other words, I would probably not. It's probably getting a little late.
Too late.
Yeah. Because if you cut that new growth off, it takes a long time to reform. Then you'll get figs real late if you get them. You may not get figs too. So fig is I call it one of the easy fruits. There are several fruits I call easy fruit because they're native usually. I don't think the fig's native, but like your muscadines are native and your blueberries are native. And those are probably two of the least problem of the fruits we have. Am I?
Two of the good ones.
Right. So finding, but muscadines, blueberries are just probably the simplest of all. And they will bear their hearts out. You got to fight the birds, but other than that, they rarely take much spraying at all. And they just bear really good. And you want a lot of variety for better pollination, but you also want a lot of variety so it extends your picking period. Because you plant all the same kind, they all will come in at once, and then you working yourself to death, then you don't have any more. Whereas if you plant a lot of variety, and there's a lot of good varieties out there, they're coming out with some even more better ones too. But blueberries rarely need spraying. I don't know that, it's just real rare. They don't need any spraying hardly at all, which is wonderful. But if you do have to spray them, watch your pollination, that you don't run the bees off. You gotta have the bees, and y'all really be careful. Cavalry or 7, you remember the old 7 dust? It is one of the worst things for bees because it doesn't kill them quickly. They'll get it on them and take it back to the hive, and it kills them in the hive, and then it kills the whole hive. So 7 is, we sold probably, I'd like to know how many tons of 7 we sold over the years until recently we realized how bad it was for bees. It's still a great product, but you just gotta know what you're doing. Don't put it out when you, bees. Now, squash vine borer, who has squash vine borer? I can't grow squash at all because of squash vine borer, and 7 won't touch it. So, I think I'll go into that in the vegetables, but the best thing in the world for that is something natural. It's the worm castings, worm poop. But you gotta start it immediately, early when you plant it, and keep it on there about every 2 weeks. And I've got one man that he's told me he hadn't had any squash vine borers in 5 years by doing that. And I cannot grow squash because of it. Muscadines are another thing that is very easy, except for pruning. And if you prune them right, they are just, you rarely have to spray them. Every now and then you might get something, but it is rare. Most of the time you can, now the way to plant a muscadine is, let's see, probably got a diagram in here from Clemson, my old book. You want to plant them on a clothesline. Now 5 feet off the ground, and Clemson got it wrong here, and they've changed that. But it's a clothesline, two poles, 20 feet apart. You plant it in the middle of the 20 foot, 10 foot. You let the trunk come up, and one vine go that way, one limb go that way, one limb go the other. And don't put 2. All right, there's a man at the end of Bettis Academy Road on Highway 25, Willie Bright. And he said, Gerald, when Mr. Ison says you do it this way, he said, you believe him, you do it that way. He's one of the biggest muscadine growers there is. But we have all these great ideas how we want to do it. Where you put a line up here, then you put a line down here, and you keep them pruned, you get more production. Well, the line down here is almost impossible to pick unless you get on your hands and knees. And they're not as sweet because they hadn't been in as much sun. And and you don't get any more production. If you just have one line, you'll get more production on that line than you'll get on the 2. And then he told me not to put crossbars and do like a double clothesline, And he said, I did. And he said, 20 years later, it takes you half a day to change one crossbar out because they rotted. And he said, so you put it on a clothesline, one line, 5 feet off the ground. And he said, you can prune it, you can pick it. And he said, it's the best thing in the world. And he just has fields and fields of them lined up like that, one after the other, 20 feet apart. And you just let one trunk come up and one limb go that way. And then the pruning is real unique on muscadines. You don't prune, you leave the spurs on there. If you cut the spur off, that's your fruit. So you leave the spurs on the vine. In other words, you leave these spurs or limbs about 3 or 4 inches long. You leave that on there. If you cut the limb bare, like you do bunch grape, you won't have any fruit. But you leave the spurs on there, and you do that every year, and keep the vines clean. I mean, you know, of all the, in other words, you clean them off like right now. Okay, and if you prune them now, they will bleed like a stuck hog. That's what Dad used to say. It does not hurt them at all. You can cut them up into April and they'll still bleed. I mean, they'll just run water. You can't imagine it can't hurt it, but it doesn't hurt it. But so prune them now and they won't bleed as much. But blueberries and muscadines kind of know our weather around here. You know, we have weather that just does like this all the time. And they usually will wait and not bloom until the weather's adjusted for them. And we've noticed that over the years, native plants kind of know that. And they know we're getting this crazy weather that dives up and down. Every now and then we've had blueberries hurt, but most of the time we don't. And I don't know that I've ever seen muscadines hurt from cold. They may have. But what people see is the muscadine. All right, now we've got what we call self-pollinating and female. Okay, muscadines come in self-pollinating and female. Well, the self-pollinator will bear and pollinate all in one. The female will only, you've got to have a pollinator around to pollinate it. So you need to know your varieties there. And we argued for years that the females were sweeter, but they've still got some great ones out there in the self-pollinating. But if you want both, make sure you have some self-pollinating along with your females or you won't get any fruit. Because you'll find one in the woods and it is bearing like crazy, then you'll see another that doesn't have any fruit at all on it, and that's the male flower. And it's really interesting to study the flower to know what a self-pollinating flower looks like versus a male flower. A male flower will have these little white things on them that have the pollen on them, but they won't have anything in the middle. Whereas a self-pollinator will have these little things and then have the pistil in the middle, and that's the female portion. So it's real fun to see that. Then the female only has the thing in the middle. It may have some little ones around it, but they don't have any pollen on them. But the female has the thing in the middle, and that's where the fruit forms. It's really interesting to look at flowers. I just love doing it. Like you'll see hollies in the woods that never had berries on them. And you look at the flower and it's a male. It doesn't have any, some hollies are just males. And most hollies are male or female. And we'll see a lot of our hollies that bloom, but you don't have a male around, but there's a male somewhere that's pollinating indoors. It's rarely a self-pollinating holly. I had a tree in my woods that I'd watched as a kid grow up, and the tree's probably, the holly tree is this big around. And I always thought it was a male holly because it never had berries on it. Then I cut some of the timber down around it. Didn't cut a lot because it's still in some shade. And when I cut it down, all of a sudden it started bearing berries because it had more sun, and it was able to bear. That's real fun to watch stuff like that. Then to study the flower, to see whether it's male or female. Strawberries, trouble. Mr. Brett was just telling me that, is it Ison? Yeah, that's a nursery down in South Georgia called Ison Nursery. And they're one of the few nurseries that will sell you strawberries in the fall, and in the fall is when you should plant them. And you can go around and buy these mighty ones for $4 or $5 a piece, and they will give you 10 strawberries, and then next year they're not worth a nickel. If you will notice strawberry fields, they do what we call fumigate them in the fall, and that kills all the weeds and all the diseases. They put plastic over them and put metal bromide gas under there, and it fumigates it. Now the gas is gone by the time they put the strawberries. But then they put the strawberries in, and they do it in the fall. You'll notice they're not doing it in the spring, they're doing it in the fall. And they're planting them like in October, November, and then they'll be picking, starting pretty quick, and then they'll pick till May or June, and then they'll let them all die, and clean the fields up, start over. Now, if you plant a strawberry, it will start branching out, and you'll get, oh, I'm gonna have a lot of fruit next year. But they get so much disease that you don't, the next year you don't get anything hardly. It's just too diseased. So strawberries are a problem, because once you plant it, it infected the soil around it, and the new ones will get it. It's just not easy. And when you buy these in the cups, for $5, $4 a piece, and you're not gonna get $4 worth of strawberries over it. I guarantee you that. Go to Walmart or the grocery store and buy you some strawberries. Or go pick your own. That's the best, pick your own. And they know what they're doing. Like I said, blueberries are one of the easiest fruits out there. And contrary to what everybody thinks, we lime the living tar out of them, and they just do better. If you read Clemson, the University of Georgia, you're not supposed to put lime in 100 yards of it, you know. Or it'll kill it, but we know better if we lime it, and it really, really works. Really good. It's not, all right, we say, and I'm going to reiterate some of the lime stuff, we say that an azalea is acid loving, blueberries are acid loving, hollies are acid loving. What Ted and I have determined over the years is they're not acid loving, but they will tolerate acid better than other plants. So we see them in that acid situation, they say, oh, they love acid. No, nothing else will grow there but them. But if you lime them, they'll just thrive. They love lime. It's not like they hate lime, it's just that they are one of the few plants that will grow in that acid soil. You know, we have some extremely acid soils here. And, you know, Calmia or Mount Laurel, Calmia Hill over here in Aiken and all that, is very sandy with kaolin around it and very acid. But if you lime the Mount Laurel and Calmia, it loves it too. So we lime literally everything. We don't worry about it. We just lime. And it helps set the fruit better, makes the plant hardier. Roses will, their canes, instead of being the size of a pencil lead, they'll be the size of a pencil or bigger, and they'll hold their heads up better. The leaves are tougher against insects and diseases. Liming is, now it's not a miracle cure for everything, but you can sure do it. I mean, it's sure going to be better than not liming. Liming is just extremely important, and you need lots of it. And it's cheap. That's the one good thing about it. It's cheap. Like people come in the nursery and they say, I need to lime myself. I want a couple bags of lime. And I say, well, the average yard needs at least 10 bags of lime a year. So, and it really does. And you will see improvements all the way around when you lime. Kiwi, that is do you grow kiwis?
I don't, but I have neighbors.
Is it doing okay?
It gets about 50 pounds a year.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Now, it's what variety? Do you know what?
It's a Hayward variety. It came from Stark Brothers. Back when they just called it the Sunday.
Now, does he have a male and a female line?
He has a couple of females in the male one, one big
Right.
monster.
their kiwis are not the easiest thing in the world, bro. One of the problems, when you gotta have a male, and then you can have 2 or 3 females with it, but you gotta have a male. And I planted kiwis in my woods, which that's no to start with. I just have too much shade, but I got these 120-foot pine trees. I'm not gonna cut them down. And they just haven't done anything but gotten bigger. But trying to determine the male and the female flower too, but that's important. Is you gotta have a male with two or 3 females. But another thing about it is a lot of times they come into fruit late. In other words, it can be October, November before the fruit ripens. Sometimes you can get a freeze and mess them up. I don't know if he's ever went into that or not.
No, it's actually important to pick them before they're fully ripe.
Okay.
If they ripen, it's not like perfect.
Right. So pick them before they turn fully ripe. Pruning is an art. But like with most peaches and apples and plums, I like to prune them standing on the ground so that I don't have to pick on the ladder, and that's not always possible. Now if you get dwarf fruit trees or semi-dwarfs, most trees around here are grown on a semi-dwarf rootstock. And it's in other words, you'll get a Kiefer pear, but it's grown on a rootstock that won't let it get big, and that's what's called a dwarf tree. I always wondered how they had all these varieties of dwarf fruits, but it's the rootstock that is planted on that keeps them from getting so big. So when you're buying a dwarf tree, you just buy it normally, and that's normal. Because every now and then there's a little peach tree called a bonanza, and it's a natural dwarf peach. It'll grow in a pot. Actually does pretty good. Has a good fruit on it too, but it's hard to find. It's called bonanza. But most dwarf trees are grown as a different rootstock than grown on, and that keeps them dwarfer. And rootstocks are important. Brent can tell you all about rootstocks because there's some good rootstocks out there and some terrible rootstocks out there. And they actually transfer the character to the tree too, how hardy it is and things like that. But pruning, normally when you prune a peach tree, you prune it like an upside down umbrella. In other words, it wants to be kind of coming out like this so you can pick it, let all the light get in there and ripen the fruit. And if you'll see peach trees up there at Trenton Johnson, they just got a flat top on a ball land. Why? Because they're pruning them with tractors, with something that just kind of goes across and shears them. But you're trying to prune it so it'll open up, but so you can pick it without getting way up in the air. You try to prune it on an outside bud. In other words, you have a bud coming off right here. You prune it where if it sprouts, it'll sprout out of the tree, not into it. So that's important. Look where your bud is and prune where it'll go out. And that's on all of them. You don't want to prune. But an apple, a peach tree is like a plum tree. You do it like an upside down umbrella. An apple tree, and a pear tree, you want it kind of like a Christmas tree shape. And so you prune it where it's going to be pyramidal and not like a flat top. My father-in-law would get me to prune his peach tree. He had a Bella Georgia, he had white fruit, not white. In other words, fruit's not white, but the flesh is white. It really is good. But he had one, and I would prune it for him. And I knew where I pruned last year, and I pruned one limb off of that tree, and it had grown 17 feet in a year. I just blew my mind, because I knew where I pruned that lady. I bet that it grew 17 feet that year. So, I mean, they can really grow, so you got to stay up with the pruning. Fertilizing, I'm going to make it real easy on you. This stuff, the best stuff in the world. It's got all your minor elements. it will last 12 months. How often do you put it out?
Once a year.
There you go. People say, man, 12 months, how often do you put it out? I just get tickled with that all the time. But if you don't have a lot of grass, all right, let me tell you, grass does not like to grow under trees, and trees do not like grass growing under them. So if you can mulch under them, it's much better to keep grass out of it, rather than mowing around the tree and scarring it with a weed eater and hurting your trunk and all that stuff. So as far as the limbs are, keep it mulched all out there. And that way you just throw your fertilizer on top of the ground. You don't have to dig it in. And it's just much better to do that because when you dig it in, you're going to injure the roots. Yes, sir.
A couple of weeks ago, I believe it was, we were talking about lime,
Yes.
and there was a ratio of 1 for
Okay.
lime to 4 lime. Is that for everything, or is
Yes.
it just
That's about everything. Now, Ted goes 4 lime to 1 cup. In other words, 4 cups lime to 1 cup of fertilizer. I go 2 cups lime to 1 cup of fertilizer. And you can, like Ted says, you can't put too much lime. But yeah, that's anywhere in there is a good ratio. But liming is so important. Now, I'm gonna tell you that water is important too. Drip irrigation, and I hope we're gonna work on something for that. Is if you'll go up in Trenton Johnson now, you'll see it. Every field is drip irrigated. See, that keeps the water off the foliage, and off the fruit, and puts it where it's needed, and it takes a lot less water. And it works so efficiently. And if I give my seminar on drip irrigation, sometimes we'll do that. But that is one of the best ways to keep fruit trees watered. And you don't have to worry about it. It doesn't use too much water. If it rains, you can still let it run. It's not going to be disastrous if it does. Even in clay, if you regulate it correctly. So watering is essential to keep your fruit. You'll see a lot of people, the fruit will drop, and it'll abort the fruit when it's too dry instead of letting the tree die. It'll abort the fruit. And most of our fruits need full sun. The more sun, the sweeter your fruit. The less sun, the less sweet your fruit will be, because the sun is what puts the sugar in. And so you need to be aware of that. You also need to be aware of picking it. Now some fruits like to be picked, like pears, and they can be picked and let mellow some. But I mean, like a peach, like I said a while ago, 50% of the sugar is gone within, I think it's an hour after you pick it. And if you chill it, that'll lock the sugar in. But by picking them and putting them in the basket next day, they're not going to be near as sweet. I tell you, when my daddy's cousins would call us up here, the Van Brothers, to pick fruit after seed, they called us after they picked the orchards, because they didn't want ripe stuff, they wanted the green stuff. It's not green, but it's just not as ripe. And there's nothing in the world better than picking a peach off of a peach tree and eating it right then. It's so much different than you buy in the grocery store. It's incredible difference. It's like from heaven. It's just neat. So remember that the sugar content does decrease. Yes.
Yeah. Does everything we talked about apply to fruiting shrubs like pomegranates?
Yes, it would. This young man back here was asking about fruit for his daughter's garden in Charleston. and it's not getting full sun. And his blueberries were not doing well, and I think they weren't getting enough sun. In other words, even if they do bear, they probably won't be very sweet. So I'm trying to think of fruits that will do in some shade. And I'm gonna have to let Red help me here, but probably pomegranates will do in some shade, but I don't know if they'll be.
Pomegranates need sun.
Okay, they need sun.
Pawpaws.
Pawpaws, yes, that's what I told him. Pawpaws.
Yeah, pawpaws.
I was in my son. Where's my son? He's not right here. Sugar's yard. We were cleaning out, and it was thick hickories and oaks and everything out there. And there were these pawpaws under there with fruit on them. I was going, I can't imagine something this dense of shade bearing fruit, but it was. And we would grow pawpaw trees, and they would have scars on the side of them, and it was sun scald from the sun hitting them. Now, it may have been because they dried out some too. They'd have scars on the side. That was sun scald from the sun hitting them. So pawpaws will probably work, but
Pawpaws, Fiolas is another one.
okay, for your that's pineapple guava, and that makes a beautiful hedge. Now, don't you need male and female there?
No.
You don't.
You need cross pollination, but it doesn't have to be a male.
Okay, but that's a good one, and she'll find that in Charleston.
Elderberry is another one.
Elderberry, okay, I don't know elderberry much. I don't know much about elderberry.
Fortunately, you don't have to. They're native here, they grow wild here.
Right. So that, yes, ma'am. You didn't go down to the creek picking up pawpaws, putting it in your basket. it's a fruit that's, I don't know, it's got odd shapes, but it tastes like a custard.
It's like a big bean, usually a half-pound fruit or so. It's the largest Native American fruit at a half-pound. It's shaped like a big bean. It's got bean-shaped seeds inside. The fruit tastes somewhere between a banana, pineapple, mango.
Kind of like a custard in a way, but.
Yeah, it has to be very soft to be ready to eat.
Right.
But it has a natural insecticide in it, so you don't have to spray it much. But it
Oh,
does need
okay.
shade when you first plant it, even if you're going to end up with it in full sun. It needs a lot of shade when it's the first couple, 3 years.
Right. Yes.
I'm interested in doing like an espalier, which is where you grow fruit trees sort of like in a 2D plane.
Right.
Is that something, can you plant a fruit tree close to your house if you want to grow it up against a wall? And then what sort of fruits would you recommend for that?
Well, normally they do apples and pears. And as long as it's going to get a lot of sun.
Yeah, it's western.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Your backyard against your house, yeah. Okay, that would work. And you can take any fruit tree and do it. Just plaster it up there, and just work it up there and hold it on. Yes, ma'am.
So you're saying now you can prune the peaches if they got the chips on them, budding out, now's a good time to go ahead.
Yeah, you can go ahead and prune them there.
Another question, I'll do two, I've got two avocados up there. But I read on the end, it'd be 10 years before they do anything, I'll probably be dead.
Well, you've got to leave them in the pot and bring them in and out. And they may not bloom because you're having to do that. I don't know much about avocados.
I just threw them out there to see what they do.
There you go, but don't leave them outside, they'll definitely freeze. You can't do that. Yes, ma'am.
I bought the self-watering bags that you put around the trunks of the trees. Is that good for the tree, or is it just too much dark? I mean, I know.
I think it's okay. I don't think it's gonna hurt it. I still love drip.
Well, yeah, I have a drip just to keep those bags.
Right. I still love drip. What are some fruits I missed? Now the palm. This is interesting. The Pendo palm.
Most common fruit tree in Aiken.
It is. It really is. I hadn't thought of that. You can't hear what he said. Palm, the Pendo palm most common fruit tree in Aiken, and it really is. All right, you know, the palmetto has a limb like this, and then the leaves come out. That's our native tree. Now, that's not what we're talking about. It looks like a great big feather, and it's kind of silvery, comes up, and then it'll have all these berries hanging on it when it starts getting bigger. That is one of the best fruits, too.
We have some Pendle Palm jam that we can try.
Yeah, he's got all kind of good jams over here. Loquat is another one that is very good, and it will take some shade. And it just, now it's kind of potluck too, because it blooms in November, I think. And then it, if you don't get, I mean, it can take some freezing, but if it gets too cold, it'll kill the fruit. But in Charleston, probably 90% of the time it's gonna bear, and they are very good. A loquat fruit is called a Japanese plum, but I don't think it's in the plum family at all. But it is really good fruit. You'll see them hanging on these trees, and you'll see all these Orientals trying to fight you for them because they like them so much. And they're that, but it's very good fruit. Yes, sir. Position. Okay, we went over that. You want them on the north side or west side of a structure, not on the west, not on the south or the east. And you can find people that have grown on the south and the east and get perfectly good luck, but we find on the average the north or the west works really good. What's that? I know, we can't worry about that. Just hope you got a good foundation. All right, any other, let me see, yes?
You haven't mentioned like kumquats, lemons, little oranges, things like that. Will they?
Charleston, now, what you need to find is some of the varieties that do, in Charleston, you should get some good stuff. But you want to make sure you get some of the Satsuma type. They're like tangerines. They're very good. But you don't want to just get anything. And we've got a grapefruit that I hope we can continue to propagate that is a real good size grapefruit, a medium size, and is very pink and seedless. Almost seedless. I don't think you ever find a total seedless. But it is excellent. And if we can keep pollinating it, propagating it, we don't have it too. Or rhyme well. Let me see, there's some of the, we didn't go with blackberries at all. Now, blackberries are very good and probably one of the easier fruits. All you got to do is keep them staked right, and you got to know the variety. But some of these, when the thornless blackberries first came out, they were so nasty you didn't want to eat them. But now they've really gotten good. There's still some of the thorn ones that are very good too. But they're, I don't know if you ever have sprayed them. It's rare.
Yeah, sometimes, but not often.
Right.
By the way, the sweetest blackberry grown today is a new variety called Ponca out of the University of Arkansas. Ponca.
Spell it.
Ponca.
Okay.
I grew up next door to Ponca City, so I'm used to Ponca. But anyway, it was bred specifically to be a sweet blackberry. So it doesn't have the high tartness that a lot of blackberries have that some people have a hard time with. So Ponca blackberry is a good one to try.
Blackberries are very easy, yes.
It is thornless.
Where can you find the Ponca that he's talking about?
Probably have to go online. Do you think
Yeah,
I
you probably have to order that online. I don't think.
I've not heard of it yet, so.
Yeah, it's very new, so you might have to go online for that.
Yeah. But you got to know how to prune, so you really need to study that. And there's all right, tell me the different varieties. There's the running kind and
Well, the varieties you want to use for here are all upright varieties.
Oh, are they? Okay, good. Good, good.
So you let them grow about 4 feet high, the canes in the summertime, and then you cut them off and let them branch out, and then in the wintertime you just cut the branch shorter.
You kind of need to follow some directions on pruning them, because you gotta cut the old cane off and stuff like that, and you can't cut the new one off, and you won't have fruit. Yes, ma'am?
I have a Meyer lemon and key lime tree in my living room and a box. They're surviving but not reviving. How could I?
All right, pull them out in the summer, put them in full sun, but don't let them freeze. Pull them out in the summer and keep them watered and keep them kind of rinsed off a little bit, because they will get scale insects on them. And if you get scale insects, you'll have to work on that. But pull them out and let them all summer long, probably up until November. Then you bring them in to put them in the most sun you can put them in. Don't in the house, because they need full sun.
So in the summer, full sun, it won't burn the leaves?
No, will not.
Okay.
Now, it may burn the leaves that may have formed in the house, which probably not many have anyway. But the new leaves that will come out will love full sun.
What about the hybrid lemons like the in-shot or something like that?
You really need to research. Brent might know some of those.
I'm working with woodlanders, so I just wondered if you've got any other.
I don't know. Brent would know.
What's the question again?
The hybrid lemons, like, is it in-shot?
Like in-shade? They probably will grow here, actually.
Because I have friends with these lemons outside, and they're probably 20, 30 feet high. They're about 10 years old.
Wow, where? Oh, wow.
There is a citrus demonstration orchard in Aiken. People aren't aware of it.
They were put in.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Grow.
over by the animal hospital.
That's it.
Is it Woodlanders doing it?
Yeah, by.
Bottom Garden?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, by the-
Wow, really? I didn't know that.
Enormous. And
Now,
they're like this.
citrus are normally 95% true to seed. Is that right? His is on.
It's a high percentage for most citrus.
Yeah, you plant the seed and
I
only
tried to
get
do the
that.
seeds and I wasn't having any luck.
Or you can't let them dry out. You need to put them before they really dry. Yes.
I had strawberries, up north. I had 5 acres of it, since you were talking about strawberries. And, I would within the 5 acres, I would do the first year, I would have a year and a half of, putting in strawberries. And then the second year, I did the second group, and then the balance, I did the third year. But in the first year, as you're doing it, you clip the runners, and then you have your strawberries, and watering and fertilizing and so forth. And then I would get my strawberries out of that. And then after 3 years of that first one, then I would plow it under
Right.
and then start the strawberries over again.
Right. You didn't have as much disease problem as you have all this humidity down there. So that's the problem we have. Yes.
So
Yes,
if
ma'am.
I have strawberries running wild, I just need to plow them under,
Well, are they buried at all?
little tiny things.
Probably just plow them up. But you probably need to plant in a different spot next year, strawberries. Yes, ma'am.
What does that mean with plow
He just plowed them under and used it for compost, but you cannot do that here because you just perpetuate the disease problem. Thank you. We didn't go over persimmons. You know, persimmon is, Japanese persimmon is absolutely incredible. He's got some persimmon jam or jelly over here. You ought to try it. But the persimmons are just incredible. They make these huge things. You gotta get the right varieties. And they are so easy, so good to eat. And they're crisp and just tasty. Very, very good. Gotta get the right varieties though.
You definitely want a non-astringent variety.
Yes, yes, yes. You as a kid, every daddy in the South is pull this on his kid, tell him to eat this, and put it in your mouth, and feels like you got dry cotton in there. You can't pluck. But once the fruit is ripened fully, it's very sweet. But with the non-astringent, you can eat them when they're mushy. You can eat them when they're not mushy. So, and let's see, what's up? Pomegranate is another fruit that is cold tender. So I like to say north or west of the structure is best, so it doesn't get the morning sun. And Brett may have other ideas there.
Yeah, there's some new pomegranates that are better than the old classic wonderful pomegranate that can handle more cold.
Right.
But yeah.
Yes.
What are those pomegranates?
What's that?
If you look in my book, you can see that.
No, it's cold got the flower. I remember last year it got them. They bloom too early, and the cold gets the flower. Hopefully. I tell you what, farmer has to be the biggest gambler in the world, because in some years he loses everything. I know several years up in Trenton, Johnson, they had a little grocery store, and they had 2 dried peaches on the wall with a plaque, and that was the only 2 peaches that whole area got. I mean, you talk about millions of peaches. That's all they got. Cole got all of them. I'm about to wear my work out here. Y'all think will run me off. Any other questions? Okay, thank y'all so much.
One note, if you have questions about some of the unusual fruits like pawpaws and stuff like that, my book has a lot of pictures, so you can just take a look at my book here.
His book is invaluable. It's $40, but it's worth every penny. It's just, it's one of the best fruit. I mean, it is the best fruit tree book I've ever seen. It is written for our parents. Thank you.
Mr. Gerald, what are we doing next Saturday's talk on? Vegetables?
Landscape design.
Landscaping. Okay,
Yeah,
landscape
landscape.
design. So next Saturday, landscape design. Appreciate y'all coming.
Yeah.